The Perseid meteor shower peaks on the night of August 12th into the early morning of August 13th, and 2026 should give us excellent conditions because the peak lines up with a new moon. That means no bright moonlight washing out the fainter meteors. In this video, I'll show you when to go out, where to point your camera, the settings I recommend, and how to give yourself the best chance of capturing a meteor. I'm Carly Stocks with Dark Sky Utah, and if you have a DSLR or mirrorless camera, a wide-angle lens, and a tripod, you probably already have everything you need. The Perseids happen every summer when Earth passes through debris left behind by Comet Swift-Tuttle. Those tiny pieces of debris hit our atmosphere and burn up, creating the streaks of light we call meteors. This shower is active from around July 17th through August 24th, and the peak generally happens around August 12th or 13th, but it can vary by a day or two depending on the year. You can find the exact peak date and time each year by consulting reliable sources like NASA or other astronomy websites. The meteors appear to come from an area of the sky near the constellation Perseus in the northeast. That is why they are called the Perseids. The area they appear to come from is called the radiance, but meteors can travel across any part of the sky, so you don't just have to point your camera or look directly at Perseus the whole time. Lying on your back or leaning back in a chair can give you the best view of the sky, but I don't usually point my camera directly overhead. Instead, I start by finding a composition I like. That might be of the Milky Way, or it might be an arch or a group of trees or some other interesting foreground. Then I use a stargazing app to consider where the radiant will be and how the meteors may travel through that composition. If you point your camera towards the radiant, you can capture meteors appearing to spread from a single spot. You can later layer those photographs together in Photoshop and create what we call a radiant image. Otherwise, choose a strong foreground and build an image you would enjoy even if a meteor never crosses the frame. I also usually have more than one camera taking photographs. I point them in different directions for variety and to improve my chances of capturing a meteor. The Perseids can appear anywhere in the sky, so there's still a lot of luck involved. Your goal is not to chase individual meteors with the camera. Your goal is to compose the scene, lock the camera down, and let it take photographs continuously for several hours. Then lie back and enjoy the show. To photograph the meteor shower, you need a DSLR or mirrorless camera, a sturdy tripod, a wide-angle lens, an intervalometer, extra batteries, and a memory card, or two, with plenty of space. A lens between 14 and 24 millimeters is ideal, but just use the widest lens that you have. You do not need a tracker, telescope, binoculars, or any specialized equipment to photograph the meteor shower. The Perseids generally improve later in the night as the radiant climbs higher in the sky, but you can start shooting once the sky is fully dark, especially if you already have a composition. But your odds usually improve after midnight and during the hours before dawn. If possible, plan to leave the camera running for at least 2 or 3 hours. Meteor photography rewards patience. You might capture several meteors close together and then go a long time without catching anything else. That does not mean that your settings or your camera placement are wrong. Meteors are simply unpredictable. Let's talk about your camera settings. The settings for a meteor shower are similar to the settings you would use to photograph the Milky Way. Put your camera in manual mode. Shoot in RAW so you have the most flexibility when editing. Set your white balance manually so that every frame remains consistent. Something around 3800 to 4200 Kelvin can be a reasonable starting point. Adjust the white balance until the color looks good to you. Open your aperture as wide as your lens allows. If your lens opens to f2.8, start at f2.8. However, some lenses produce softer stars or more distortion when used completely wide open. If that happens to your lens, increase the f number a click or two to increase sharpness. Start with a shutter speed between 10 and 20 seconds. The correct shutter speed depends on your focal length and camera. Take a test photograph and zoom in on the stars. If they look like small lines instead of points, shorten the exposure. Start around ISO 3200. If the image is too dark, you can raise the ISO. If the sky is too bright from light pollution, then you need to lower it. These are starting settings, not firm rules. If you want help finding settings for your specific camera and lens, use my free Milky Way time-lapse setting calculator. You can find it linked in the description below. Next, switch your lens to manual focus. Point the camera towards a bright star and turn on live view mode. Use the zoom buttons to magnify the star on the screen. Then, slowly move the focus ring until the star becomes the smallest, sharpest point you can make it. Take a test photograph and zoom all the way in. Make sure the stars are actually sharp before starting the sequence. Once your exposure and focus look good, set the camera to take photographs continuously. Some cameras can do this on their own, and others need an external intervalometer. Check your manual or search online for your camera's capabilities. The intervals should be as short as your camera can reliably handle. You want the next photograph to begin almost immediately after the previous exposure finishes. For example, if you are taking a 20-second exposure, you might need to use an interval of 22, 23, or even 24 seconds. Cameras define intervals differently. Each of my 3 Canon cameras need different interval settings. Test the sequence before walking away and make sure the camera is not leaving large gaps between photographs. You may need to increase the time to do this. Also, make sure long exposure noise reduction is turned off during the sequence. When that feature is enabled, the camera may take a second dark exposure after every photograph. That creates a large gap when no meteor can be recorded. Once your test shots are successful, start the time lapse and let the camera run. Do not keep touching the tripod, changing the composition, or checking every photograph for a meteor. Every gap is another moment when a meteor will cross your scene. While the camera is working, step away and enjoy the meteor shower with your own eyes. One of the things I love about meteor photography is that the camera can keep recording while I experience the sky. You do not have to stare at the back of the camera screen all night and make adjustments. Even if the meteors seem to be strategically avoiding your camera frame, you will still be treated to one of the best meteor showers of the year. Before you leave home, use the link in the description to download my free Milky Way Quick Start checklist with the basic gear, focus processes, and night sky settings you need in the field. Most of that checklist applies directly to meteor photography as well. Once you get home, you will need to edit your photographs. You can find my basic night sky editing and time-lapse tutorials in this video, or my full editing workflow in my Milky Way in Motion Masterclass. In my next episode, I'll show you the free tools I use to find genuinely dark skies and choose a location before I ever leave home. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Until next time, take care and clear skies.